We're going to transition now to our business mastermind. Hello, I see the tribal elder has joined us. Um, I'll make some quick, brief introductions, and then I'm going to hand it over for the tribal elder to set the stage. For those of you that are joining, welcome. For those of you that have been with us since 9, thank you. We are joined with our panel. I've got my partner in crime in dental directions, Dr. Bobby Elliott with the Brady Bunch. You want to say hi, Bobby?
Hey guys, it's good to see everybody.
I didn't know that.
It's good to see people in general. It's been a long couple months.
Chris Sands, one of the founding partners with Profi, has been speaking for the last 2 hours. He'll be with us in this session. We have Michael Schwartz, who's the CEO of Specialty Brands, which, Michael, you want to say hello?
Hi, everybody.
I think I can hear you.
Chris. Very informative.
And then we have the tribal elder himself, who is the uniting force between the rest of us here, Dr. Jerry Sampson. And without further ado, Jerry, I'd like for you to set the stage as our tribal elder before we go into this session here.
Back when I was single, I heard that often. Mute all of them. Yes. Well, thanks for the invitation. I have been a fly on the wall for the last little while, maybe 45 minutes, and listening to what people have to say. So I think those of you that know me know that I'm quite blunt about my lack of business ability. I never pretend to know anything about it, but again, for those of you that are familiar with my background, for 38 years, I ran an orthodontic practice limited to children and teenagers. And wait a minute, I'm going to change. There we go. And it was my niche. And I think that some of what I was hearing it's worth emphasizing that if you say you're a dental specialist or a pediatric dental specialist or an orthodontic specialist, well, that's fine. But what's your niche within that specialty? It's a subspecialty idea. I'm quite convinced that that's essential, that if one tries to do too much, that it ends up being a lack of confidence and a lack of customer service, not just for yourself and your patient families, but for the team. I mean, the team knows what's going on, and especially people that have been on your team for, my assistant was with me of my 38-year career. She was with me, I think, 28 years. I mean, the woman could read my mind easily. So I think you have to decide that and focus on that. I think those of you that know Phil, for example, Phil has a remarkable business mind. Phil, did you ever take a bunch of business courses?
No, but my father was in business, and I think it was through his experiences that, and he started a few different businesses, that I saw the entrepreneurial side. And so from witnessing my family's involvement in business helped me at least see outside the box. And my father had an amazing accountant who helped teach me a great deal. So I owe him, I have my core team, Jerry. So between you and my accountant and Bobby, I owe my success to. So thanks.
Well, thanks for saying that. My situation from childhood, and I'm hoping that this is not like an emotive noise I'm making. I'm hoping that people will think of themselves and their strengths, as well as those areas where they have no natural talent or very little natural talent. And one of the books I've referred to now for quite a few years is called The One Thing You Need to Know, about great management, great leadership, and sustained individual success. The catch is the one thing you need to know. Now, it's by Marcus Buckingham. Now, for those of you that are soldiering on for the final portion of the party, if you will email me individually, I will send you a PDF file that I found online. I don't think it's still there, but some big shot business exec read the book, realized how meaningful it was and how valuable it is, and did a PDF synopsis that's as good as the book, because the book is about that thick. And it's about great managers, great leaders, and people that are successful for the long run. So it's called The One Thing You Need to Know. And if you'll email me directly or go through Phil or something like that, I'll send you the PDF file. I live on the edge of fear. I'm not concerned about somebody popping me for a copyright infringement. Well, one of the things that Buckingham talks about in his research, and Buckingham is a guy that graduated like when he was 12 from Stanford. He's one of those bizarre intellects, but it's numbers and statistics. His PhD, I believe, is in statistics. So after being the head of stats for the Gallup poll, he decided to split off and start his own consulting company, studying one great person at a time, because all of us know that statistics apply to the group that are being studied. When those statistics are applied to an individual case, an individual restoration, an individual orthodontic situation, in fact, those statistics may be meaningless. You should take great comfort that shows you a lack of predictability, that you can't predict everything. You can only try. But if you think you can, well, then we're setting ourselves up for absolute misery. There were people predicting COVID for years. I mean, there were past presidents and trying to stay within political confines. I won't say who they were, but there were past presidents saying we need to have a pandemic plan in place for the United States of America right now. And that was not Obama. It was before Obama is where I'll leave it. Well, nothing got done. It can't happen here. So what Buckingham did was he studied one great person at a time, great athletes, great musicians, great coaches like Lombardi, and so on and so on, great statisticians and Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. Well, the one thing that these people had in common when it came to great management is if they were a leader, they recognized they may not be a great manager and probably weren't, but they hired great managers and they paid them what they were worth, and they never, ever micromanaged. No, they gave them a job to do and got out of their way. So great leaders have a great vision, and they're not necessarily great managers at all. Sustained individual success. Those people follow their own natural talent. And for a younger person, let's say a child or a teenager or a young adult, they may not know what their natural talent is just yet. They have to find it. And it's pretty simple. My distillation of what I, again, thought was a remarkably interesting book, because it's called The One Thing. Well, here's the one thing you need to know. And he tells you, you see. He tells you, yes. It's what you're good at. And one of the things he says in the book is, it's real simple to figure out. When you leave the room, what leaves with you? When you enter the room, what are you bringing to the party? So in my case, in pediatric dentistry, or in general dentistry, that specialty, I was a good general dentist, but I wasn't very good. I was good, but not very good. And I knew from previous experience in sports and other things that I needed to find something I was very good at, or I wasn't going to be happy. Well, it became obvious it was pediatric dentistry. And I was a very good restorative pediatric dentist. How do I know? Well, I mean, my instructors in my postgraduate program told me. They said this is really a nice restoration. But where I really had it There's plenty of good, really good, better than me restorative dentists. I mean, John Taylor, for example, you ever see that guy's anterior aesthetic work? It'll make you weep. It's so beautiful. But where I really shined was behavior management of the kids. It was not business. I hired an excellent accountant that I trusted. The first accountant didn't work. The first accountant didn't have the right vision of the future, which was get out of debt, by the way, Chris. I'm sure Chris must have said that. I mean, I've heard Chris just bang on that one. You are never free unless you're out of debt. And in this country, you're never free anyway because you have to pay taxes or go to jail. You have to have that freedom. Get out of major debt. Well, this accountant didn't see it that way. And that, again, where credit's due, it comes from my wife, Betty, is get out of debt, stay out of debt. Natural talent. Just listening to what was being said, hire the right people. Gay Lowry, for example, is a phenomenal person. And she does her own work. She's not going to truck you off to a toad. She'll be doing the work. She'll take the responsibility. That is her identity. Another example, Michael Schwartz. I didn't connect. I was approached by Michael's former partner, Mick, to join with the previous company called Spring and Sprout. And I said, no, we need to date for a while before we get married. We need to date. And not unlike my close and wonderful friend, Bobby Elliott, I wanted to find out, what am I getting into here? I don't want to regret later. And then I saw how Schwartz behaved under pressure. Then I saw how Schwartz behaved when he was being tested, you see. The last thing I'd like to mention goes along with some outstanding notes that Phil sent to me about what he thought would be very interesting for people to discuss and chat in on. And that being the test. What has gone on with COVID and all of the collateral damage from COVID has taught people, oh, it can happen. And it can happen like that. Boom! Everything is different. How long did it take? A few days or maybe a few months before all of us realized we had to stop denying that this was happening? Because that's the first response, right, is denial. Oh, this isn't happening. That's not that bad. Yeah, well, this teaches everyone the lesson that Chris just talked about. That being that it can happen. It can happen fast, and it can cut real deep and real hard and shake you bad emotionally. The people that are really having a lot of trouble have taken on significant debt. And now they're wondering how they're going to pay their debts. And there's a lot of questions what's going to go on with this government waterfall, this government finger out of the dike money that's happened. What's going to happen in the long run? You got to get ready for that. What if they say they want the money back? What if the forgiveness doesn't happen? Well, the IRS moves, they're moving slowly but methodically. And man, if they want to get us, they will get us. Well, what if they say you've got to pay the money back and you don't have the money? So when Phil emailed this list of things, he wanted to set the stage for discussing highlights of the harsh reality. Now, I have, as I mentioned before in one of our previous Black Swan events, and perhaps it does bear repeating, is how do you want to be remembered? We're never going to get through this. We're going to adapt to it. It's never going to go away. It's probably the most significant thing. We're under attack by a virus. The world is under attack. Our culture is under attack. The United States of America is under attack. Dentistry is under attack. And one of the things that I'll throw out there in this rant is, if in fact we end up having socialized medicine, if that happens under the current administration or under the next administration, come on, it's going to hit pediatric dentistry first. They're going to say the kids deserve it first. There's just no, it's the virus should not be a political issue, and it is. It should be non-political, but that ship sailed, the ink is dry. It's a political issue. Well, the next political issue, the coming political issue, I'm convinced is going to be socialized medicine, not without choice. No, I don't think that'll happen in this country. You're going to be allowed a choice. But if socialized dentistry hits, or when it hits and it hits the kids, you've got to be ready for that. So I think what I'm encouraging you to do is think about this now, is what's the strategy? Because it'll happen fast when it happens. And if it happens the way it did in Canada, and I do know something about the facts behind that, that when it happened, which was a number of decades ago now, the government hit and said to the pediatric dentists, you can sign up for the government program and you're going to be paid a fair amount of money. Now, Canada is like one country, I suppose. I don't know if the provinces have a say-so in what happens. In our country, each state has a right to make their own decisions. It's the basis of the country. Well, we all know that in some states, medical assistance for children's dentistry pays so poorly, like in Florida, nobody wants to do it. But the flood will probably be that there will be a seductive or attractive, at least, let's say an appetizing amount of money for pediatric dentistry per patient. And then what do you think the government's going to do? They're going to hack it. They're going to slice it. They're going to cut the knees out from it. But you will be in it. That if that's the majority of your practice, you're just going to have to say, well, I have to accept it. I don't know if they'll allow a combined deal where you can have private pay, some sort of insurance, I don't know, and also combined with the government. I don't know. But in Phil's question to me is, where do you think things are going in dentistry in general? And of course, my heart is that of a pediatric dentist, and I guess my exoskeleton is an orthodontist. But I do think that you need to get ready for that now, just like being unprepared for this awful COVID mess. Michael, I know that from the part I was listening on, that you were kind of self-muted. As far as any initial comments from your standpoint, how many pediatric dental offices are in specialty dental brands now?
Right now we have about 10, I would say. We are, our group focuses on pediatric offices, orthodontic, and oral surgery. And within the next month, we'll be doubling in size. So we'll be between 40 and 50 offices, and about 25% of our business or so will be pediatric dental. Then oral surgery, and then we have probably 50% orthodontics right now. And
as far as what you would advise people, like things that are like top category, top tier, top shelf that people need to be aware of from your standpoint. Now, there's two ways to look at this. One is trying to compete with corporate pediatric dentistry, and the other one is, well, that they're not my competition. Another option is to offer your practice for acquisition, either by a private group or a corporate group. Michael, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think, the big thing that I see happening is, the consolidation of the dental space it was really accelerating in the last 5 years. So, obviously it started in the general dentistry platform because that was who the most dentists were. So when you look at the really big companies out there, Heartland, they're over 1,000 offices, Aspen's over 800, Pacific Dental's 800. It took a while to get into the specialty realm. And I think, one of the first pure specialty groups were out of the Southeast, and, that only goes back to maybe 2010. So a lot of the consolidation happening in the specialty arena has really only been for 10 years, and it really picked up about 3 or 4 years ago. So I think when you're looking at everything, and, I think for those of you who got on early and listened to Chris, he hit a lot of good points of you always have to be thinking about what's the end game. And you got to see what's going on in the landscape. So for years, it was always doctor to doctor transition. No big deal. Happened decades and decades. But what's switched lately? Well, in the last 10 years, student loan debt of dental students and residents has gone exponential. And if you look at in the specialty arena where the consolidation has picked up the most steam, it has been in orthodontics. And, you say, well, why ortho? Well, there used to be a feeling that when we talk about dentistry being recession proof, people would be concerned about cosmetic procedures that were more expensive. And if people were losing their jobs, are they still going to do that? Well, with ortho, what we've found, and this has been consistent since I've been in the business in 2008, is people are going to wait. The last thing they're going to cut in their personal budgets are services to their children, whether that's sports, arts, healthcare, whatever it is. So as the economy goes bad, even if a parent gets laid off, it's got to get really bad before things are sacrificed for their kids. So you look at COVID, and a couple things happen with orthodontics. One is most patients are on a payment plan. So even when the office is closed, there was still cash flow coming in. I think that was one thing, when Chris talked about cash flow versus paper profits, two different things, right? If anybody has a 401k account or an IRA, you can look every day and say, oh, I'm up 10% in my portfolio, but until you sell it, that's a paper profit. So the cash flow that orthodontists were seeing during the shutdown, they didn't really get affected that bad. When places started reopening, and we have offices across 3 time zones. So the only place we're not is the Pacific time zone. Well, our mountain states, they opened sooner because they were less affected. June and July were the 2 biggest orthodontic months for our ortho practices in their history. And you can say some of that's pent up demand, but it's also that, kids want to get braces on before school starts. They want to, summer's good. So I think as you look at the consolidation, as it's picked up in specialty, it's really picked up in ortho. So now I would say the biggest specialty DSO out there is an orthodontic only DSO. And they're up to 200 offices now almost. And the other reason driving that is when you talk to dental students, residents coming out of school, I've never talked to any resident that has more than 700,000 in debt that hasn't been an orthodontist. So when you start looking at these big numbers, 700, 750, a handful of people with $1 million of student loans, one thing they have in common is they're all orthodontists because there's no stipend. It's an extra year. And so that traditional breakdown has occurred. there's not a lot of residents that could come out and buy into an ortho practice. And, we see this in other parts of our lives. I mean, back in the 90s, it was the mom and pop pharmacies going out of business because Walmart and Target and Walgreens and CVS started, opening everywhere. What's happening right now? Mom and pop retailers over the last 5 years have been going out of business because of Amazon. Department stores going out of business. I mean, for those of you who follow this stuff, Amazon's working on deals to buy a bunch of JCPenney stores and malls and turning them into distribution centers. So you have to pay attention to the macro environment and how the industry is changing. Or like Chris said, you get blindsided, and all of a sudden you've kind of been in your own bubble and you're like, oh, I want to retire in 2 years and I'll just sell it. And then you wake up and all the rules of the game have changed. So I think it's about constant planning. One of the things I like, and I think it's great showing the KPIs and all that. I also, when I'm projecting out, building those budgets for the next year, I always like to look at a base case, an upside case, and a downside case. So when you look at 2021, if you're thinking that way, your base case is, okay, it's getting better. We'll slowly reopen, continuing to go, and here's my business. The upside case is we get a vaccine at the end of the year and we're back to the way the economy was pre-COVID. The downside case is flu comes out, there's a huge second round of all this. What am I going to do? And you can take those three cases and that can go to all parts of your business. Your staffing, your hours, what are you buying? How are you going to market your business? All the stuff that Chris and Phil and Bobby talked about in the beginning. But I think it's really beneficial not only just to create a budget looking at historical, but then to take that and say, what's a best case, what's a bad case, and what's the baseline? And I think a lot of us have operated in the baseline case because we used last year's numbers to project the following year numbers. But you've got to get these other scenarios in there or you're going to get caught. And then you turn into a reactive mode. And I think that's the challenge. I think a lot of people, and not just in dentistry, I mean, we saw politicians, we saw schools, everybody got caught in a reactive mode because they didn't have a proactive risk management plan or, a contingency plan for what happens if things change in my world. So,
Michael, if I can say so, I would add, most business owners, I think, never actually do write their business plan. And this is another opportunity to do that. And if you've owned your business for a while, more about it than when you first started it. So you're in perfect position to write that business plan for the future. I would say for the ones who have written a business plan, the part that was most missing, and because this typically only occurs in very, very large businesses, but it needs to happen in all businesses, large and small, is the disaster recovery plan. So this just happened, right? And you should document what happened, how it happened, who'd you have to lay off, in which positions, in which orders. Like, those are not fun things to think about, but you went into protection mode. Like, the most dangerous parts of this were the very beginning. The decisions you make about in the very beginning are the most crucial, and at the reopening, right? And now that you've gone through it, what would you do differently? This is, it's no different than the children's schools having a plan for a fire drill or for a tornado or any of those things. Now that any threat to your business, what is the disaster recovery plan so that you can act faster next time?
Yeah, I call it like the debrief or the after action report, right? In the military, they have the after action report. And, this was a big action. So now you've got a little bit of time to go back and say, what did we do right? What did we do wrong? What did we do could we have done faster?
Yeah, I think that, what did you say, Chris? The United States of amnesia? Is that what you said?
Yes.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's a there's certainly that Americans are known to have short memories. I mean, you know, it's sort of like the definition of Sicilian Alzheimer's disease. That's when you forget everything except a grudge. Culturally, we're very. I think it's quite healthy that we let it go, or we ought to, versus other cultures that really don't. Now, I think what you have to guard against, and what the boys are just saying, that's Schwartz and Chris, and that there was something post World War II called the mid-century moment. The war was over, and the economy, the people who survived were back, and the world was at peace. It's when I was born in 1948, the baby boomers. So during this mid-century moment and this explosion, everything was great. The Roaring Twenties was another one where there was, everything was just great. Well, people can tend to get stuck in wishful thinking, wanting the mid-century moment to come back. Well, before this happened, dentistry was I think, according to, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think according to the financial people, that would be Chris, Michael, Phil, and Bobby. I mean, nothing had ever been better. I mean, my career was just always on the way up. There was never even a flat point, never. It was always moving up. And all of a sudden, boom, you know, the floor, the rug gets pulled out from underneath you. So I think that the thing that you're being advised, those of you that are listening and trying to take this advice, is beware of the New Year's resolution syndrome. Yeah, I'm going to lose 20 pounds for sure. Well, starting tomorrow. Well, you know, I got to eat. I got to have a drink. Yeah, you know, I can't get that much sleep. I know I won't be able to do. I can't get my goals. Now, I think that what you're hearing here is a real knock in the head. That if you're like me and you're not really capable, and my dad used to say, my dad was very good with numbers, and he'd say, you could learn it if you want to. And I would say, Dad, I don't want to. I mean, don't you hire people for this, like accountants, and, you know, which would kind of rub the old man the wrong way. But but I think that's what you have to do. Now, one of the things that I just made a note about is a true life adventure from somebody who is one of the panelists, but I won't say who. Well, this individual tells me a story about an accounting issue, and a pediatric dentist, not me, another pediatric dentist, hears the story about a significant overlook, ignoring something in a tax code that could have saved the pediatric dentist a lot of money. I mean, I still consider $5,000 a lot of money. I consider $20 money, but that's just me. But this was significant money. Well, when this pediatric dentist found out about this and called it to their accountant's attention, their accountant said, no, look at that. Oh, well, you know, let's file and get the money. Yeah, okay, good on you. Oh, thanks for telling me. But they didn't fire the accountant. There was another example of an accountant that was their uncle, but the accountant wasn't good. But the nephew, who was a pediatric dentist, couldn't bring it up. And forget rehab. That ship sailed, man. This is years of overlooking things. Not 1 year, not 3 years, many years of overlooking it. Well, okay. I think the way you have to look at that, yeah, there's a lot of people out there that are really don't want to fire anybody. They don't want to give bad news, you know. All right, fine, I get that. You hire an office manager and that's their job. But then, of course, the team member or the accountant's going to come crying to you. What you need to look at is, this is a threat to your security. This is a threat to your family. and it's nothing short of a threat. Now, what would you do if somebody is actually threatening your family? It's time to hit the go code button. This is what that is. And now you have this terrible opportunity of what's happened in COVID to say, well, I've heard, I can't get over this, Bobby. I love this one. Somebody said, oh yeah, this team member, this individual, I've been wanting to get rid of that person for years. And now I can. I'm just not going to hire them back. And I said, why didn't you just let them go years ago? They were like not contributing to the common good. No, they were contributing to the common harm. Well, she's, sorry, I didn't mean to say that. That's a nice person. I didn't want to, they have a family to support. And I'm thinking, but you talk to them about it. Bobby, do you have some comments about this? Like, I know that Phil had an excellent question about how this has affected team morale. And all of us that know Bobby, Bobby isn't with his unique personality and his unique background, which I found out about as our friendship soldiered on. Bobby actually has a natural talent to bring people up, is kind of a cheerleader. Bobby, what do you say about all this with the team members and what you've been through?
I think I would dial back to March. The mindset, as we all first went through this, that we didn't know how long this was going to go on. There was a true threat to our livelihood and to the ability to provide for our families, for our team. And that was the scary part. When I talked with my partner, Julie, she said, all we know how to do is to be good dentists right now. We went to school our whole life and have dedicated our whole life to be dentists. What happens if this doesn't come back or doesn't come back for a long time? Where we are now, we know how to better prepare if this goes down again. The fear of not knowing in March or even April, May, that was paralyzing to a point. I think a lot of our colleagues either stepped up or fell back. And I think part of the Black Swan series that we did was to try to help gather our colleagues and say, we're going to get through this. We're in the same storm. We may not be in the same boat, but we are in the same storm. Moving forward, I feel like we know kind of what to be prepared for or what could be coming down the path. There's a little bit of reassurance there. We hope that doesn't happen, but we have to be prepared, like Chris and Michael, Phil, everybody is saying. I want to bring this full circle to current day and say, I think that we initially wanted to just get back into the practice to turn the lights on. And that's happened now, but we have been hit with so many additional waves of challenges that inhibit our ability to just get back in and just let us do what we're good at. Let us see patients. We're not scared of the virus. Viruses aren't new to us in our world of dentistry. But the COVID virus has ripped teams apart. These team members who have young kids at home are having to make the difficult decision to leave the practice that they've been in for 17 years to go home and be a homeschool distance learning teacher. We just lost a 17-year veteran Wednesday, and it ripped my heart out. We weren't prepared for that. She wasn't prepared. I wasn't prepared. We were going to ride off to the sunset together. That's one big issue that's happened. Parents are still scared to come back. So we are seeing a decrease in our numbers. And I would like to ask everybody who's on this course right now in the chat, would you put a number in between 1 and 10 about where you feel you are? 10 being you're back to where you really are happy and you're confident, and 1 is you're still scared to death. I'd just like to see what a poll would be of what everyone's number is as they start responding. Mine personally would be about a 7 right now.
That is really an outstanding thing to bring forth, Bobby, to ask everybody. So I hope that you'll all start doing that, because this is not misery and joy's company. This is, you can say that we're all in the same paper ship on the ocean, but doing this, you get a chance to see like the numbers are spilling in right now. Phil, what do you say?
We're all feeling that same anxiety. We're back doing dentistry, but we aren't able to function at the efficient level that we were because we're losing team members. Our practices are like a table. We have 4 legs in order to maintain balance. When one of those legs or 2 of those legs get pulled out from under us, man, we're tipping. And it's a challenge to run the practice when you are short, much less when you don't know if people are coming back or they're forced to leave.
Well, this is, if I think everybody can see the numbers if you just click the chat button on the Zoom. And Bynum, this is a riot. Well, you know what people are, what is very daunting, and what's really happened. I just did a YouTube on this for especially dental brands where I'm the clinic director for orthodontics. It's based on the book that Phil is quite fond of, as well as Bobby, What If Disney Ran Your Hospital? And it's the cornerstones of Disney. Now, the 4 cornerstones of Disney are safety, courtesy, showtime, and efficiency. Safety, courtesy, showtime, efficiency. Safety, courtesy, showtime. That's what the entire Disney platform is based on. When Bobby said we're like a table with 4 legs, that's the 4 legs of Disney. And if you ever have a chance to hear Disney management speak, you really want to hear it. You really do. I got that chance a few years ago. Well, think before I tell you what it is. Efficiency, safety, courtesy, showtime. Efficiency, safety, courtesy, showtime. What do you think the number 1 thing is that overrides the others? Now, before I tell you, think about what you think it is. I'll go through it again. Courtesy, efficiency, showtime, safety. One of those is the single most important thing.
Safety.
Right, it's safety. If people don't feel safe, how can they have a good time? How can you have a good time at the show? How can you be efficient if you're worried about your own safety or the safety of your family? How can you be courteous if you feel threatened? I mean, that's like diametrically opposed. So what we have gone through here, at least in my estimation, is we went from being incredibly successful, incredibly predictable. You know, how am I going to deal with all of these new patients? I mean, it's just incredible. I mean, it's boom, boom, boom to bang, gone. No, it's gone. It kept thinking it was a nightmare. So what happened is the foundation of all of our safety, of our identities was shaken right to the bone marrow. So the way I see things, Phil, is that the team has got to understand that people must feel safe. And that's not a panoramic view. Sure, it's a panoramic view, I should say, that there is a global thing in the business of being able to convey a safe environment from the time they come in, from the time the appointment is confirmed about this is what we're doing for safety. Having it on the website may not be good enough. But what about the individual family? What does it take for the individual family to feel safe? And the first line is in my office was always my front desk people. There was only one. The woman had an incredible ability, a natural ability to know what people needed. When you get what you need, you feel safe.
Jerry, you taught us during COVID, the Black Swan, safety first, safety always was the driving message. And I think many of us took that and implemented it into our re-entry component to the practice. I can tell you that many of our patient families have said, thank you for making that a priority. We feel safe. Now, if each of you guys are not asking each of your families when you're checking their child, I want to just check in with you and say, Mom, did you feel safe through this process? Did the emails make sense? Did check-in go smoothly? Has your experience today made you feel safe? One, they appreciate the vulnerability of you asking the question, but two, you're garnishing some incredible information and are asking for suggestions that we have listened to our parents and implemented. That sends a huge message of caring. empathy, and also the care that you want to provide the safest environment possible. So take advantage of those opportunities to ask your parents if they felt safe at the appointments.
See, that's what I'm talking about. There's Bobby Elliott, right? I mean, I don't know if you've spilled that before right now, but how perfect is that? What if you were the parent? What if you were the uncle or the granddaddy? I mean, isn't that what you want to find out? One of the other things, and I'd like to hear what Phil has to say, is that there's a spectacular search engine optimization SEO expert named Evan Lazarus, who I now have on my team. Because with Nathos, as most of you that are curious know, I'm not done yet. I'm not done with Nathos, and education is not done with me either. So I decided, you know what? Instead of just saying, well, life's a cabaret and Nathos, you got to be part of the show, man. And now it'll have to be across the screen. I don't think so. In more than 10, but less than 15 minutes, I decided, nope, I'm in. I'm still going to go for it to see what I can do with this. Well, this Evan Lazarus made a comment in an interview I did with him, which is on YouTube, on search engine optimization, and it's also there on YouTube with Len Tao. It's quite lengthy. It's about 90 minutes. Evan Lazarus said, you know, through this whole thing, I've had the same physician, the same dentist, the same specialists for a long time. Not one of those people has contacted me to ask how I'm doing. Just, you know, hi, you know, these are, he said, personal friends. No, they're really not personal friends, but they didn't like send me a text or an email or a phone call and leave a message. You know, I was thinking about you. I'm hoping everything's all is going your way during this very, very difficult time. Not one, not one. This is what Bobby is just telling you right now. Find out. Phil, what do you say?
You know, it's not so much what I want to say. I have a question for Michael, Jerry, that might be what both of us want to hear. And, you know, Michael, you manage a lot of offices. So I want to hear your reflections on kind of what Bobby's sharing in terms of what your different offices have faced, you know, because one of the goals of this mastermind session was to try and garner some, you know, what's the status, you know, like I think Jerry did a great job of setting the stage of what's coming. And I think the takeaway message from there is the culture is never going to be the same. It is not going to go back to the way it was. And we're going to grow from this experience, and we have to rise to meet that challenge. And the way you rise to meet that challenge is you understand what you try to project as best as what it's going to be. So you can start making some changes so you can be prepared, knowing that if you've got good systems, you can adapt to anything, and there's a learning curve. But you know, Bobby speaks so beautifully to the passion of the patient care and the centeredness of the team. So I'd love to hear what your offices are experiencing in terms of what are patient priorities right now when they're coming in. Are they looking to feel safe? Are they looking for, you know, like I'm just curious to hear what your offices are telling you about the topics we've been covering so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting. Like I said, we're in 5 states. So we're in Montana, Wyoming, Texas, Tennessee, and Georgia. And soon we're going to be in Idaho and Utah. And I think Jerry said this at the very beginning. What became a global health crisis in the United States turned into a political weapon almost immediately. And that trickled all the way down to the communities. So depending on, are you a red state, are you a blue state, are you a red city, a blue city, wherever it was, there was unique things. So I remember when we shut down all of our offices on March 16th or March 18th or whatever the date was. You know, I was talking with partner doctors in Montana. They're like, why are we shutting down? Nothing's happening here. This is a New York City and Seattle problem. Nobody even cares about it out here. Okay. So we reopened in Montana and Wyoming the first week of May. We were reopened. And the state, there was competitors that reopened in April and we pushed to keep it closed. out there, I mean, it's honestly, it's business as usual. Like patients at the beginning were like, why do we have to wear masks? Why do you need our vitals? Like, nothing's going on here. Now, luckily, the hospital system out there was pushing the message of some of these patient safety things. And so we created our COVID plan ahead team in March, and, you know, following, and I had a whole like task force internally to do all this stuff. But I mean, we were off to the best start of any year, January and February. March was good, closed down, opened back up. It was like we were never closed down. So you look at that ortho group up there, and, you know, back June, July, like back to the January, February numbers or better, you know, year over year numbers up 20% from last summer. You go down to Texas. So our offices are in the Dallas, Fort Worth metro area. We kept those offices closed till June. You know, there was a lot of stuff going on in Texas. You had the governors were disagreeing with the mayor. The governor was disagreeing with the mayors. You have county politics there. Dallas, Fort Worth is 2 counties. The counties start disagreeing. So Dallas was like, nope, masks, we're shut down. Tarrant County was like, no, it's open for business. Well, you have employees on both sides of the counties crossing over. So we kept our offices closed till June. We opened. The only place that we've had any issues since reopening of any employee testing positive has been in Texas. Now, we've all seen on the news, you know, Texas became a hot spot. Georgia became a hot spot. Florida became a hot spot. Well, we experienced that. And so we had multiple starts and shuts and getting people tested. You know, anybody that thinks, that disagrees that we have a testing problem, you know, I had somebody that was exposed at home. So we sent everybody in our place to get tested 5 days to get a test results back. Oh, we have a 24-hour test, but that's not covered by insurance. So that's $200. Well, $200 is a lot of money to somebody that makes $16 an hour. Now, we paid for that because we didn't want to be closed for a week. We wanted results. But, you know, it continually got worse in Texas as the hotspot went. Then the tests were taking 10 days, you know, 14 days. So, you know, the business there is not back to where it was. Most of that's pediatric business down there. But, you know, we're fairly busy. I would say if I was ranking the numbers over on the side, we're back to like an 8 over there. Nashville, like we're in the suburbs of Nashville. They reopen, they're jam packed. I mean, the amount of patients we've seen now, we're limiting capacity. You know, we're extending appointment times, we're extending cleaning times, cleaning the rooms between, as you guys know, in peds and ortho, a lot of open bays. So there's different things. We bought, you know, air handlers, but the business in Tennessee is back up. You know, in Georgia, we're oral surgery. It's right back to where it was. So what I've taken away from all this is the majority of patients are not scared because they're used to coming into a dental office where people are wearing PPE. They've always been concerned with viruses. There's always been sterilization. So it's less of a change. It's much more of a shock to an individual of trying to walk into a restaurant, and now you see your server with gloves, mask, face shield, and all that. It doesn't feel natural. But in the dental setting, it feels natural. Like
I think that's, let me jump in on this. I think that's a huge thing for the image of your dental business, is to make sure that people are aware that we are prepared. We've always followed very strict sterilizations and cleanliness guidelines. And now with the new guidelines, because of the virus, we will continue to be not only prepared, but over-prepared.
Yeah.
I think that that's one of the things that you've got, because everybody that I'm talking to, and I'm talking about to CDC, virologists, they're all saying the same thing, that in the fall, you know, pull up your pants because in the fall, something's coming back. Now, everybody's hopeful. And like the general said, hope is not a strategy. Everybody's hopeful that things will have mutated into something less virulent. But what I'd like everybody to hear is that you are ready. You're ready now.
Yeah,
So
you're already doing it.
yeah,
You're already doing this for years. And I think, you know, part of dentistry is you're also an armchair psychologist and sociologist. And you need to watch, and this goes back to the planning. You know, I think if any of you guys know or have read about game theory, there was a movie several years ago, Beautiful Mind, about John Nash. But, you know, I like using game theory because, you know, you're trying to predict if this happens, what's the response going to be? You know, the classic game theory is the prisoner's dilemma. And if you ever watch any of the police shows or any of that, there's a reason why they separate when there's two bad guys and they separate them. And they always go is like, well, you know, you can get a deal if you're the one that talks first, right? So when the prisoners are separated, they look at their 4 boxes of what the potential outcome is. And the best outcome is for them to confess first because they'll get the better deal. So it's, you know, that's a really dumbed down strategy. But, you know, going back to what Bobby said, you know, and he's had a longtime staff member. And I think I'm going to take a little bit of another side to this because these were discussions during those Black Swan things. And I talk about, like, I'm very big on culture in the offices, but I think what we need to understand is, as armchair psychologists or sociologists, is at the end of the day, humans always revert back to protecting their best interests. Okay. So I think the challenge I had early on in this whole thing and being on a ton of webinars and talking with a lot of doctors was, you know, I'm going to say in March, there was a strong belief in March, oh, we're just going to be shut down for 2 weeks and the virus is going to go away. No big deal. And, you know, Chris has talked about the amount of emergency cash or cash on hand being 30 days in most dental offices. I would say the overwhelming majority of private practice dentists continued to pay their staff and would not lay off their staff in the first 2 to 4 weeks because they felt like it was their obligation to not do that. And I think when you go through and now you're at this point, you're seeing across the country, and I'm talking to dentists, all specialties, private practice, the recurring theme is, I can't find anybody to come to work. And you know, and I'm not faulting anybody. I mean, I'm sitting at home with 2 kids and I've got the same problem. I just happen to be fortunate enough I can work from home. But when it comes down to your job or your family, you're gonna pick your family every time. So you know, a lot of dentists went out and extended, like, we're going to take care of the office. We're going to take care of everybody, which could have been to their financial detriment because they didn't have 6 months of cash on hand. And now that they need people, those same people that they were loyal to, unfortunately, either they don't have a choice or they have a choice. They're not being loyal back to you. And I think that's the business side that gets looked at like you're the big bad business guy. But at the end of the day, if you don't have money to operate your business, you can't help any of your team and you can't help your community. And this is a problem. I mean, and I've talked to a number of doctors. I mean, we're in Texas right now. We're offering $1,000 signing bonuses to hire dental assistants because nobody can find a dental assistant right now in Dallas, Fort Worth. I've got a doctor up here I talked to in Michigan. Can't find anybody. Dental assistants that were getting $17 an hour are getting hired at $28 an hour. A temp firm that he used that always had 300 hygienists in their thing is down to 5.
Michael, let me ask you a question about that. So what's your advice about this for people that are on the screen?
I think you got to be transparent. You got to be real with people. And you got to understand, you have to pay attention to what's going on in your community. You know, if you're in a community where going back to this proactive, reactive, right? You saw this happen, Jerry, in your backyard in Georgia. You know, oh, we're going to send the kids back to school. We're going to send them back to school. We're going to send them back to school. They go back to school for 1 week. They shut down the whole school. Well, was anybody shocked about that? No, but the school didn't have a proactive plan. So then immediately they're going back. Now it's all reactive, right? So I think you need to understand and check in with all your teammates. If this happens, if school's going virtual, now everybody that's a parent has been talking about what school's going to be like. And my kids in Michigan, you don't end school till June. So since the middle of June till last week, we've been talking about with every parent, what's your plan? If school's virtual, what are you going to do?
Hey, Michael, tell them how old your kids are.
13 and 10.
All right, go ahead.
So with the last one, I mean, here's just a side story. Yesterday, my kid was switching from my 13-year-old was going from private school to public school. We've been trying to work with the public schools since December. He's got some learning challenges, so needing an IEP, filling out paperwork, getting him officially enrolled. Well, the school said, well, we're shut down because of COVID. This started in March. No paperwork can be processed because the administrative building's closed. School starts here in 10 days. 2 days ago, we've been reaching out. I have a string of 30 emails. What's the plan? He's still not technically enrolled. What are we doing? All they do is copy people. Yesterday, we had to pull the trigger and send them back to private school because of 10 days. Now, the schools got caught sideways in March. It's now the middle of it, 5 months. And they still couldn't tell us if he's enrolled, what classes he'll be in, how they're going to handle IEPs. It's like, you know, the same thing happens with our staff. So you have to be checking in and find out if A happens, what's B? If your kids have to go virtual, can you work? But I think sometimes we get stuck in, and that's where the culture thing gets. Like, you can have a good culture, but that doesn't mean that as the doctor owner, you're running a charity either. Like, you have to, because if you're taking all the hits out of your own pocketbook, your practice isn't going to be around long enough to be able to do all the good things you want to do.
Michael, what advice would you give to teams where they've lost upwards of 30 to 50% of their clinical team, but they've had patients on the books? How do you manage that day, week, month when you only can see 3 columns and you've got 6 scheduled?
Yeah. So I think you've got to, this is one of the things I said to Phil is, how do you do more with less? You might have to choose to be smaller. I don't know. If you own your own building, you got a lot more wiggle room, right? If you're in Austin, Texas, and you're renting and your rent's $40 a square foot, and you take your schedule down 50%, you're in trouble, right? I mean, then you become the restaurants where, no restaurant can. I would say a restaurant can't even make money at 75% capacity, let alone 25 or 50. I think you got to really revamp your system, and unfortunately, it goes down to the people of working more with less people, and that might even mean, you got to cut back patients or change your thing, because what kills us all, and we did this the first couple of weeks, right? We cut our capacity to 50% for COVID reasons. We were losing money in all our pediatric offices. I mean, peds is easy. Like, if you can't see 30 kids per doctor in the office, you're gonna lose money. So you can't keep a full staff and then only see 50% of your patients. So I think if you can't find people, and you're going to have to probably bump up your wages a little bit. But if it's, if you had to pay double the wages, that doesn't help you. So I think it's unfortunate you got to start back, and you got to communicate that to the patient bases of we're seeing less people because we've put in safety protocols.
I think the anxiety comes, and the stress is that every day that ticks by that you have too many patients scheduled, not enough support team members, you got to make a decision. And it takes a bit of time to get those decisions implemented. I feel the worst for my admin team who have had to reschedule, call and schedule, and they're burnt. They are out, and we just lost our other admin person, So there's a bit of a struggle here. When I ask people to put their number up, I just want to reiterate that number wasn't about how much you're back, like not 70% back. It's how are you feeling as a whole. My 7 is because I know there's something bigger coming. If people back in March and April, when we listened to a lot of the financial consultants, they said, you're going to open back up and feel a surge. And I think most of us are busy and busier right now, and we're up. But there's a false sense of security that we were told to be prepared for, and that I had told my team, there's going to be a drop-off. This is a false sense of security. So if you're not planning, if you haven't looked at your October and November schedules, you're going to be in for a huge surprise.
Yeah, and I saw a couple of people post that over there, and and we're no different. Look, being a DSO, we're no different. I mean, for us, it's just our pediatric offices, but we even reached out proactively to insurance companies and said, okay, you only pay once every 6 months, but we were shut down for 2 months. So can you waive it for this year so we can just get people in the books? And they said no. Yeah. Right. So this is a perfect, example. And if you're working with Chris or another good financial professional, how are you going to schedule your staff and everything in October? I mean, you just have to do it's math, 6 months. So half of March you were closed, so that's the second half of September. All of April is all of October, and May is November. And if you look right now, you probably have less than 10 appointments a day on your book right now. And so you got to work your past due recare, but a lot of us have already done that, trying to get people in from here. So that's a diminishing return, but you got to work that. And you've got to decide, so one of the things we did is we've sent out to talk to all of our partner offices and said, okay, people, this is going to be a really good time to take vacation. Okay. So don't take vacation now. Don't take it in the beginning of December or whatever. Take it in October and November, because we're probably going to compress the number of days. Most of our offices are open 4 days. Let's take it down to 3 days or 2 days. And because we can't be open 4 days and see 10% of the patients. And so and this is going to be for all pediatric offices out there across the United States and GPs. I mean, GPs are going to get hammered in the end of Q3 and the beginning of Q4. And this is what we're talking about is, regardless of a virus, the 6-month effect in those two parts of dentistry is going to put some people in some serious financial problems, because they are going to have no cash flow coming in those months. And so how much of that cash did they burn at the beginning of the pandemic, and have they been able to replace that? Did they get a PPP loan, and do they still have that money? But you're going to have to weather. And, where we get a benefit as a DSO, and I think these are all things that go into the decision whether to keep it going solo or this, is exactly what you just said about the burnout. We have our own internal scheduling team, right? So when this all happened, I have a facility in Lexington, Kentucky, that's our people. And that's all they do is they take new patient calls. They call out for recare. They're plugged into all of our practice management softwares across our platform. They were able to work the phones for the offices doing all these recare or rescheduling. So in Texas, when we thought we were going to open in May, we had switched people to May. Then so some people we had to touch 3 times and keep pushing them out, but we got that pressure out of the office. But in a private practice, I could see that, because they're making hundreds and hundreds of phone calls a day, and it's burnout. So,
let me ask a question. There's Brian Travers chatted in, working more with less people has made some people quit, and Bobby is in agreement with that. Well, in what you're saying, Michael, if I jettison my mind into being in that position as a private practitioner, as I beat to death, I mean, I don't really have a business mind. What I'd be thinking is, and I wrote this down in bold type, ask for help right now. Don't wait until the wolf's at the door and they're blowing your house down. No, you need to ask for help now. Now, I'm curious, who would you say to ask for help? I mean, is it the usual suspects? Chris, if someone were to ask you for help, hearing all of this that's going on, and hearing all of this from the DSO as well as the clinician standpoint, would you say, yeah, my company is a company that can help sort this out? Because Schwartz, well, you know, I'd say, yeah, Schwartz knows what to do, but Schwartz, he's not running that kind of party. He's not doing individual consulting. What do you say, Chris?
I mean, I certainly think that when you're in the thick of things and you're the one, you know, working in your occupation and can't be working on the business all the time and you're in it, that you know, you can get lost very quickly. There's an old saying about the difference between fear, facts, and faith, right? And it's interesting when you look at when you look at something visually, to see the history of where it's been and to see what you're going through in the moment. You can take a step back and see the facts. You have to then, you know, you got to take the emotion out of it, because we all have the fear. If you say you don't have the fear, you're lying, right? There's some part of you that has this fear, because we're all in something new that's unknown. We don't know when the end is coming. We don't know when the solution is coming. It's just this unknown. And you can only do the best you can with the facts that you have. And I believe that, you know, everybody's correct. The October, November, accept it. That is a hazard. Now deal with it. And sometimes you need somebody else, you know, outside of your four walls or outside of your head to kind of rattle your cage and say, stop living in fear. Okay, let's get the facts. Once you have the facts, you really have to put your faith first, that, you know, this too shall pass. But you have to take the facts and make some decisive actions. So when it comes to that fourth quarter in October, November, as much as you can, I think the strategies that Michael, that you said, are valid, where you say, you know, we have everybody take vacations those months. We consolidate the number of days that we're open those months anyway. We plan for that now. Or you say, you know, strategically with that front desk, I want those, give those options first to patients who didn't come in when they were out, who haven't come back in. Let's try to see if we can get them in and fill those months. But I also believe, you know, this is the time to double down, that, you know, you've got to try harder to invite more people into that practice. The majority of the practices out there aren't going to do that. No. Everyone goes into conservation mode, right? And the ones that all go into complete conservation mode, they will continue to shrink and dwindle, and they're just trying to survive. The ones who say, you know, I have a problem, I see the problem ahead of me in October, November, why don't I market now for taking patients in those months? You know, whether you feel like you're at a capacity or not, do it. Jam pack it, you know, stress the system that time, because you already experienced the opposite end of the spectrum of stressing the system with no patient flow when you were forced to shut down, nobody working. You got this, and you got to bring your team together on that. You're going to have to communicate that to the entire team. Guys, we're going to try to do our best to, you know, plug the hole that was created from April and May, and it's coming again because a result of that in October, November. I need everybody's buy-in on this, you know, that we're all in together to pack those months.
Chris, two things on that statement. It's a catch-22 if you have a limited team because people haven't come back, and you're asking us to stress the system to team members who are already at the brink. That's one oxymoron dilemma. The other one is, I've had clients tell me, colleagues that I help with consulting, say, my team's holding me hostage. They're saying, if we don't get a $5-10 increase in salary, we're bouncing. I mean, how do you respond to that?
There's no, I don't think there's any solid answers.
There isn't. These are the additional waves that cause our number to go from 10 to 9 to 8 to 7.
This is what I say about being the psychologist is, this is where the colors show, right? It's in stressful situations where people's true colors show. And I think people are going to revert back into what's in it for me, right? The WIFM, what's in it for me. And so you know, you might have to temporarily, I mean, you know, for survival, you give the raise. But I think as soon as a team member is identified, they're holding you hostage, you should be looking for their replacement immediately. And when
where are those replacements?
right. I mean, I get it, but I mean, you just got to start building that plan, because at some point, you know, so at some point, hopefully there's going to be, I think the big thing that was stopping the replacement labor out there was, you know, a lot of people making $15 to $18 an hour were making more money on unemployment, depending on what state you're in. Like if you're in Texas, you were definitely making, because they actually have high unemployment. Tennessee, very low weekly unemployment. So it was kind of break even. But if you could make more money or break even and not go to work and not risk your safety, or you have kids, everybody's going to do that, right? They're not bad people. It's just human nature.
Human nature.
But I think, just to address Brian's thing about working more with less people, I don't think this is just a dental issue. I think what you're going to see, and I think this is something that a lot of people aren't talking about, because you watch the news or you watch the stock market, you know, the market's going up. You're going to see a lot of bigger companies not bring people back. Okay. And this is going to be, so at first, the first wave of people that got really hammered by this were what we consider frontline workers, right? Restaurants, bars, you know, these lower paid things that you have to do in person. The big thing that I believe is out there, and again, kind of trying to forecast upside downside, is there's going to be a lot of mid-level management jobs that are not coming back. And you know, we're shifting in the kind of employer-employee relationship. The last several years, the employees have had the leverage because unemployment's been low. They could do exactly what you said, Bobby. Somebody could walk in and say, you know, if I don't get a raise, they could go across the street and get hired in 5 minutes. And it didn't matter if you were a frontline person or a manager at a Fortune 500 company. There was a dearth of talent out there. Now, the businesses that have gone through this and work from home and everything like that have found out, oh, we're actually doing okay, and we have people working from home, or we have less people. So that company that somehow grew to 5 people in the HR department is now okay at 3 people because some people had to be laid off and they haven't brought them back. And as unemployment stays high, the people who have jobs are going to be willing to work longer, because it's the difference of having a job and not having a job. And it reminds me, when I first got out of college in the 90s, that's what happened. I mean, you know, the running joke in US companies were always like, congratulations, I'm giving you more responsibility, but there's no compensation with it. Right. But that is really, I think, for the next 2 years, the mode we're going back into. So I think as a private practice, I think you also need, as you're getting into your data, you need to see where your patients are coming from. You know, you need to see, we do these insurance reviews for all of our practices. And one of the parts of that insurance review is here's your number one insurance, you know, your top insurance plans, and here's the employers with that. So if for some reason you're getting a bunch of people from the GM plant, you know, in your town, you should pay attention to what GM's doing, because if there's a plant shut down there, or you've got some big employer that's going to hang off, you know, that's going to not bring people back, that could also affect you. So I think you're going to see sustained unemployment. I think for most of the people on here that deal with kids, we're in a much better position, because what I said before, if I was a general dentist right now focused on adult patients, I would be very nervous. I really would. I think as a kids professional, we are in the best situation of anybody in the dental industry. I do believe that. It's just going to be a trying time. We started working on our 4th quarter strategy in July. Our AdWords spend has been going up, and it's doubling starting September 1st. Just to try to drive new patients for the end of September, October, November. Go ahead, Chris.
I've got a question about strategy. So let's just take a dumbed down example that, let's say there's no patients in November. The recall reschedules have missed their 185-day window and they've pushed into December. So it's hard to get recalls in. Our only appointment options really are going to be new patients, what we're talking about, restorative, emergencies. You know, it's a limited number. So let's run the number and say that we have 100 patients scheduled in November. Do you recommend putting them all in the first week and taking 3 weeks off for mental stability, or putting 25 patients each week and spattering them in? I agree. I think it's the first model, which is what
a dollar today is more valuable than a dollar tomorrow. Remember the guy in the Popeye thing? I'll gladly take the
Hey,
hamburger.
Tuesday for a hamburger today.
Yeah.
You don't know if you'll be open the full 4 weeks of that month.
Well, I don't think so either. This is just an example of, for the people on here, what I'm saying is backfill from the beginning, starting on November 1, and teach your team to schedule so that you aren't having a spattering where you have to show up for 3 or 4 patients a day. You offer the next available appointment as the backfill order, so that you do close. I mean, we're basically telling the team, schedule the first week, hold the second week to see how it shakes out, and we're going to be closed the 3rd and 4th weeks.
Yeah.
Which also begs the question, does the team have availability to unemployment insurance without having to be furloughed? Can they just claim reduction of hours due to COVID?
Absolutely. And I think that's the thing. Now, in some states, and you got to watch your state. So we ran into this in Georgia, right? We went to a split schedule in one of our Georgia offices. So we have 2 doctors in the practice. So we did, and we were doing this part for like, in case somebody did get COVID. So we put half the team with 1 doctor and they worked Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. The other team worked with the second doctor Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Well, in Georgia, because I think the unemployment max for a week is like $275. So the problem was the people that worked 3 days at the beginning of the week had already earned $275. So they weren't eligible. So they got denied on their unemployment. But if you're doing a situation like you, where you're closing down, so no earnings that week, they can absolutely apply for that.
So there's our strategy for everybody who's on this course, is make sure you teach your admin team when they're offering appointments and trying to get anybody in to backfill from the beginning, and don't offer those days that are later in the month. Take a mental break. I'm ready for two or 3 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody could use it, and it's just
Bobby, the answer to your question is there is no one answer, because every place is experiencing something different with their feel of safety and certainty. Again, part of that may be the political climate of states that you're in. But I think everyone, if you see this cycle that's on the screen, the Kubler-Ross cycle, we're in between that awareness, acceptance, and experimentation phase. And that's what you want to bring your team together and figure out, what players do you have?
Yeah.
And this has not been done. So it is an experiment. Hey, one way we can go with this, we are trying our best to let's pack the schedule and fill in October, November. And if you don't have those people on board with you, then you have to experiment with something different. Back to the Michael's example of, maybe you try to pack the first week, and maybe you already accept that you're going to take a full week or 2 weeks off and maybe close the office and let everybody take vacation.
And maybe you tell your team, look, we're going to be off, Thanksgiving week, the week after, but normally we're closed the last 2 weeks of December. Let's flip that, because I still think, it's not like leisure travel's like completely rebounded, right? So some people are traveling leisurely, but if you get out in front of it now and start talking about, let's be open the last 2 weeks of December instead of the last 2 weeks. Remember, now, depending on your practice, so but a lot of these like universities, and we'll see what the public schools and stuff do, but a lot of people are talking about, you go till Thanksgiving and then you're going to be off till after the first of the year. So you might have a situation in your town where there are a lot of kids back around or available in December that maybe in years past you were worried about, all these families go on ski trips and do that. So, you might just be shifting 2 weeks that you had in December that you were usually off and just flipping them to November. but you got to get out in front of it today, because today is August 21st. And this is the thing I'm saying is, if you're just starting to look at your September and October, you're way behind the curve, right? I mean, we're 30 days out. In 30 days, there's no patients in the recare schedule, pretty much, right? Because we were closed March 21st, most of us. So you're in that 30-day window that you've got it. You know, you can't wait till the week before and go, oh crap, we don't have any patients next week. What are we going to do?
Yeah. Brian asked a question about why he didn't think we're going to have any patients in November. A lot of the patients that we have rescheduled through the gap either wanted to come in later, wait a little bit, or they got in their September, early October reschedule. But there is a gap that we're seeing nationwide that is end of October and into November.
Only for peds and GP offices.
That's right. That's right. Ortho is nice.
Yeah, and if they're insurance patients too, you can't reschedule them for another 6 months anyway.
Yeah, they block you.
Threw this up on the screen. This is taking that, when I said the facts earlier, like taking that data of this is the last 3 years of a practice, 2018, 2019, and now 2020, and comparing those periods of what was before, what it has been this year, both in revenue and in net income, profit. And in all of that unknown out here of October, November, yes, you have to find out which team players do you have. Are they going to be on board for you to try to fill those days? Or if they're not, are we going to close down those days? But regardless, I would tell you, like, if we're seeing this kind of rebound, and this is a fairly consistent example of what I've seen in practices we work with. This might be, again, June and July is somewhat of a false positive, right? You got some of that pent up demand. You got the people that you didn't see in those months. But as much as we can, any profit, any cash net income, right now is the time that is only used for one of two things: either saving for the unexpected in that October, November, or reinvested for that October, November. You know, in marketing for new patients, what Michael Schwartz's strategy that he's taken, right? In that one example you gave. That's the only two things it's for. I mean, every other expense, every other lifestyle expense, everything else, we are still in business preservation mode because we don't know what the next step is. But part of business preservation is business continuity. You have to keep at it to fill that schedule. You don't just give up and say, what are we going to do? I don't have the team.
Right. So let me share a screen real quick. I know we're running out of time, but I just want to illustrate this for you guys. Why is it not telling me?
Give me a second. I'm making you a co-host.
Oh,
Sorry. There you go. You should be able to.
okay. Hold on. I'm not getting, let me close this real quick because I'm not seeing which screens are which. Desktop 1, desktop 2, desktop 3.
Now, while he's getting that squared away, what you just heard Chris say about now is the time to conserve and decide what you're going to do with invest in the practice.
Oh.
For me, I thought that was quite critical.
Okay. Tell me Zoom privacy.
Okay. Keep going. As business owners, I would also encourage you guys to really look at taking a pay cut, putting that money back, funneling it back into the business. If you have multiple owners, that is a great way to conserve cash and to be able to preserve that for down the road.
Bobby, let me ask you and Phil something. Well, we see if Michael can get this squared away. Technological problems. I know the feeling. I know that that Bobby and Phil have a consulting service. And when I asked the question of, well, who do you go to? Who do you ask? Who do you ask for help? What's the status of your consulting service right now, Phil and Bobby?
I still have active clients that I'm helping. I'm cautioning those who are looking to open a practice right now.
Yeah.
But I'm still on.
If somebody listening in, are you accepting new clients, Bobby and Phil, or Bobby or Phil?
We both are. Yep. Through
Okay.
Pediatric Dental Directions and Pedo Springboard.
All right. Well, for those of you that would be like me, like, okay, good. I need help. Who do I ask? Who do I trust? Well, there you go. Okay, Michael.
Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. So these are just pediatric offices because, like I said, ortho's not having this problem. So this is an office in Tennessee. So I always like to look, and Chris will tell you this too, is sometimes you'll see things called TTM or trailing 12 months. So you're always looking 12 months, a 12-month thing, and you kind of roll it through. So you're seeing, so this gives you year over year. So this office, fairly busy office, they're seeing 80 to 110 pediatric patients a day, right? So this is 2019 over here. You can see beginning of 20 was up a little bit over the end of 19, and then boom, the office closed, right? So now you've got this. Well, where's the 6 months from here? You see it right there. So now this blue is, these are all people scheduled out, right? And this is, it mimics it. Now, we've been lucky because there have been some people that said, you know, I'm not ready to come in now, but put us into September, October. I'll feel more comfortable then. But it almost mimics that. You know, if I go to, here's an office in Texas, they were closed longer because we were closed till June, right? And you see the same problem right here. And then why does it start picking up? You know, okay, here they got 14 people scheduled on December 16th right now. You know, this is a small office for us, but you know, here the other day, August 4th, they saw 40 people. Then we saw 51, you know, so we're going through, there's one doctor there, it's pretty busy, 36, and then everything falls off the table and we got one person scheduled, 0, 0, 0, 1.
And Michael, this gap's going to repeat itself for several years until it naturally fills in.
Right. So yeah, because you got to keep getting new patients, right? You know, here's a different office over in a different part of DFW, same thing. So this is going to be, you know, you're constantly doing this. And this is why you have to decide, like Chris said, you know, marketing, you know, businesses love to cut marketing when times are tough. It's like a marketing expense. Well, marketing is an investment. So, you know, we're going to go from, we spend on average per office anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 a month on AdWords. That's going up to $6,000 to $7,000. Now that's going to make our P&L look a little worse probably those months. But like you said, Bobby, if you don't do it, you got this cycle that just still goes because you got to get people back in and get new patients.
Yep.
So.
Well, on that note, this has been incredibly informative, and we really appreciate everybody who took time out of their Friday to join us. And we certainly want to thank Michael and Chris and Jerry for sharing all of their expertise with us. This could be a 3-day course. But
no, thanks for having me. I think
absolutely.
It's good to talk and hear what's going on around the country. And, you know, I think we'll get through this. It's going to be a challenge.
I look forward to more things like this, more times like this. And I certainly think, knowing the text messages Phil and I are transferring back and forth, that this is going to be something else that we'll put back together and inform everybody about the next session that we'll get together. But I really do appreciate everybody's time today. And I feel that's too.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks so
Wonderful.
much for having us.
Stay vigilant, stay safe, be smart.